Muhammad Ali had boxed many fights in his career and he was one of the legends at the sport. However, he was more than just a boxing champ. He was a hero to the people. There were things more important than boxing, and this was an example. This was Muhammad Ali's stand against the Vietnam War. Muhammad Ali was born on January 17, 1942, with the name of Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. in Louisville, Kentucky. His parents were his dad Cassius Clay Sr., who was a sign painter making minimum wage, and his mom Odessa Clay, who was unemployed. Ali also had a brother named Rudolph Valentino Clay, who was his best friend during his childhood. Growing up in the South meant that Ali had faced a lot of racial prejudice because at the time, the South was very segregated. In fact, Ali had grown up living in one of the 3 black areas of the state, called the California area. He didn't perform well in school as he was distracted by doing bold things to get attention from other people. When he turned 12 years old, he received a new bicycle from his dad for his birthday. This led up to how he found his love of boxing through an odd sequence of events. One day, when his bike was stolen, he told Joe Martin, who was a police officer and also a boxing trainer, "I want to learn how to box so I can find the chump who stole my bike and beat him up good." Martin then told him, "Well, you better learn how to fight before you start challenging people." Consequently, Ali decided to take boxing lessons from Mr. Martin. This was what sparked his dominant boxing career.
Ali's boxing career started in 1959 when he won the National Golden Gloves Boxing Championship, as well as winning the AAU boxing title. Winning these competitions allowed him to complete the 1960 Rome Summer Olympics. He ended up winning a gold medal, which made him gain fame throughout America. He decided to take on professional boxing after this at age 18. His first fight was against Tony Hunsucker when he won in a 6th-round decision. By the time he was 21, he had fought in 19 matches and won all of them. His dominance in the ring was shown as 15 of these wins were knockouts. By this time, Ali had gained the confidence and skills to challenge the heavyweight champ, Sonny Liston. This fight was going to be held a year later on February 1964. Liston was highly favored to win with 7-1 odds. However, Ali ended up beating Sonny Liston with a knockout performance and was crowned the youngest heavyweight champion at age 22.
Before winning his heavyweight title, Ali had joined the Nation of Islam and started to get tutored by Malcolm X, who was the leader of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam was an African American political and religious group. It was created to help African Americans find their place in America by teaching them the Islamic religion. One of their core beliefs was that there was no other god but Allah. Joining the Nation of Islam meant that Ali, formerly known as Cassius Clay, had to change his name to Muhammad Ali, as Cassius was a slave name. When the public found out that Ali had joined the Nation of Islam, they were completely shocked. In America, black Muslims were considered to be racist, violent, and controlling. This belief was an example of the racism and discrimination in America at the time, and Ali had joined that group. The public couldn't believe that he had decided to join the Nation of Islam because that meant that Ali had all of a sudden become one of the rebels. Ali didn't know it, but his decision to join the Nation of Islam was about to affect his whole life.
In 1964, Ali was sent to an Army induction center in Miami. At this time, the US didn't know that Ali was part of the Nation of Islam. Ali took a military intelligence test to be qualified for the Army, and he failed with a score of 16, and 30 points were needed to pass. A few months later, he had to take another test and failed again. However, this time, the US changed the minimum required score to be equal to the score he received the second time, qualifying him for the draft. Ali had other plans. He refused to be inducted into the Army, saying, "I ain't got no quarrel with those Viet Cong, and no Viet Cong ever call me nigger." Ali chose his beliefs over his boxing career, even if it meant having his heavyweight title stripped. He knew the consequences, but he refused anyways. Because of his actions, Ali was fined $10,000, banned from boxing for 3 years, and sentenced to jail for 5 years. Ali believed that going to war against the Viet Cong was an act of racism. He believed that this was just another act of racism by the US, and he did not want to fight for a country that discriminated against blacks. There were two choices that the US government gave Ali. However, Ali thought otherwise.
It has been said that I have two alternatives. Either go to jail or go to the army. But I would like to say that there is another alternative. And that alternative is justice. And if justice prevails, I will neither go to the army nor will I go to jail.
Throughout his fight, some Americans started to rally around him and support his actions. I won't be used by powerful white men as a tool to kill other people who are fighting for their own beliefs and freedoms, and neither should you, especially if you're poor and or black. This was the quote that got many people on his side. Even Martin Luther King spoke out against the war. Ali never gave up, and by 1971, the Supreme Court had overruled Ali's conviction. Along with his freedom, the war approval ratings kept sinking. The rating had lowered all the way down to 27% of Americans that approved the war, which was the lowest that had ever been under President Lyndon B. Johnson. Ali's boxing license was given back to him, and he was about to make a surprising comeback in his boxing career.
After having his boxing license reinstated, Ali started his boxing comeback. His first fight against Jerry Quarry ended when Ali landed a hit so hard that Quarry had cut his eye. This commanding performance was exactly what Ali needed to start his comeback with a bang. In fact, over the course of the next 4 years, Ali had won all of his fights except 2. One more thing remained, reclaiming the heavyweight title, which was exactly what Ali had his sights set on. In 1974, Ali had fought Foreman for the heavyweight title. Although Ali was the clear underdog, he had won in an 8-round knockout, and the world knew who the real champion was.
And he worked over the shoulder of Foreman. It's a combination. 3, 4, 5, 6. Foreman gets up to the knee. 8. That's it. The fight is stopped.
Ali's actions during the Vietnam War had influenced many people, such as Martin Luther King Jr. A year after his stand against the war, Martin Luther King Jr. started advocating for black civil rights, and his I Have a Dream speech was one of the major events in the movement. Many people had noticed Ali's brave actions. Even Malcolm X, the leader of the Nation of Islam, wrote in his autobiography that Ali had captured the imagination and support of the entire dark world. With the help of prominent figures such as Martin Luther King, the movement became more relevant and eventually changes were made. The world thought Ali was just a big-mouthed kid who was undeniably a beast in the ring. However, through his actions, Ali had showed the world who he truly was. He was more than just a champ.